All right. Hello, welcome all. Welcome in another important video. I hope you all are doing great. In this video, we will get introduced to basics of Lambda function, where we will try to create our Lambda function using our AWS console. All right. So let's get started. So as you can see, I have already logged in my AWS account. So first of all you need to do is you'll need to go ahead and search for Lambda. Okay. Here you will find the Lambda. Just open it. So this is Lambda dashboard, and on the left hand side you get multiple options. First is your dashboard. So this dashboard gives you basic overview of how your Lambda functions working all together. And you have to remember one thing: this charts or matrix that is shown here is not just for any particular Lambda function, but it is for all Lambda functions that you have created. Okay, so you can certainly look into this matrix, and if you found something unusual, you can go back to your Lambda function and improve it. Then there is a functions tab. Okay, so in this whole video, we are going to talk about this functions tab itself. So this functions tabs gives you list of all Lambda functions that we have created. So currently I do not have any Lambda function, so that's why there is nothing here. But whenever I will create new function, you'll see those Lambda functions here. So let's go ahead and create new Lambda functions. So you can see this create button, just click on it. And here you get three options. First is author from scratch. That means we can build our Lambda function from scratch. Okay, we do not want any boilerplate or any reference of code. So that in that case, we can keep this option selected. Second option is AWS itself have some applications, demo applications created. So if you see this list, so if you want to play with S3, then you can choose this, and there are multiple options available here. Also, you can create your HTTP API. So if you want to go with the blueprints, that means the boilerplates, or you can say the applications that AWS by default provides, so you can go ahead and use this application, and later on you can edit it. Okay, third option that you get is container image. So you can create your own container image. You can see this ECR. ECR is another service that AWS provides, which basically works with Docker images. So if you have any Docker image, you can certainly use this registry and put your image here, and then you can create Lambda function from it. But just to keep this things simple, I'm gonna go ahead and create everything from scratch. So I'll keep first option selected. Okay, if I scroll it a little bit down, it is asking me to provide name of the Lambda function. So I'm going to give it a name, let's say demo Lambda. All right, and then you will have to select runtime. Runtime is nothing but your compiler. So let's say if you are creating your application in Python, then in that case you'll have to select Python runtime. If you are creating your application in Go language, then you'll have to select Go runtime. Okay, so I'm gonna create this application in Node.js. So I'm gonna select this Node.js itself. Then you have architecture. So if your application is architecture specific, then you can choose any one of this. I'll keep this as a default. Okay, then there is a permissions tab. So let me explain this nicely. All right, so now let's imagine this is your Lambda function, and this Lambda function is trying to insert some data inside DynamoDB. Okay, this is your DB. But we know that in AWS, everything works with permissions. So if this Lambda function has permission to access DynamoDB, then and then only Lambda function will be able to access it. Otherwise, if you write code to insert data in a database, but still it will throw errors because you haven't assigned enough permissions to this Lambda function. And that is the reason why you have this section here. Okay, in AWS everything works with authentication and authorization. So in this tab you get three options. So first option is create your role, and using this option it will create one basic IAM role, but it will not have any permissions assigned. But later on, once your Lambda function is created, you can go ahead and add new permissions in this created role. Okay, so that is the one way. Another way is if you have already created new role in IAM, you can assign that role to this Lambda function. So for an example, there are multiple roles listed here. So this is from my previous work. So if I think that, okay, this group has enough permissions uh, that this particular function will require, then I can simply assign this existing role to this. Okay, so in that case, you don't have to create new role. Then third option is create new role from AWS templates. So this is another option. So AWS already listed few permissions group. So you can see AMI read permissions. If you scroll it a little bit down, you will see SNS S3. So let's say if you are creating one application which needs S3 permissions, okay, or just read only permissions, so in that case you can choose this template. So this templates is nothing but AWS already recognize some use cases, and just to make your job easy, they have created some roles so that you don't have to create new roles explicitly. You can simply use this template to assign specific role to your Lambda function. Okay, so these are three options that we have to assign specific role. This is really important because otherwise our application will not be able to perform intended actions. In this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create this role from scratch. I'll keep first option selected. And then in advanced settings, you get options to enable code signing, enable function URL, which we currently don't need. Click on create function, and now it will start creating this function. All right. So as you can see, our function is now created. You also see this green message here. So this is the dashboard that you get once your Lambda function is ready. Okay. Now let me go back into this list. I'll show you this is the function which is ready. And just to test this, what I'm going to do is I'll click on test. I'll create new event and I'll give it a name. Let's say demo. And I'll test it. So as you can see, our Lambda function execution succeeded. And if I see the details, I got message from Lambda saying hello from Lambda. So this is how you can create your basic Lambda function using AWS console.